the last chapter, 22, verses 10 and probably through 16 or 15. And he saith unto me, seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he which is filthy, let him be filthy still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still, and he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. And the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let him that heareth say, come. And let him that is at thirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. We'd like to share with you, before we begin the billets, about a tiny little book that we received in the mail, and it's targeted for seniors, and it's written by an MD and financial advisor. And the reason we received it was to probably subscribe to some of his books and his program, but this was very interesting. It has to do with survival. We've shared it with some of you before, but we're getting to see more and more deeply how survival on the physical relates to survival on the spiritual. He talks about, this is Dr. David Eifrig Jr., MD, and he explains why he wrote this book. He starts off explaining 9/11, what happened in 9/11. I mean, in the building itself, to a lot of the people there. Stanley Morgan had its office on several floors in the second tower that was hit. But Stanley Morgan had an employee, and I believe his last name is something like Rescola. And he's one of the unsung heroes of 9/11. He was a decorated Vietnam hero. And part of his job that he felt was his job was to prepare the people at Stanley Morgan for any type of disaster. And he had a premonition that uh, these buildings were going to get hit because they looked like perfect targets. And there were other reasons why he had this premonition. So he gathered up groups of certified rescuers and trained them for survival and what to do in case of any emergency. He explains to them the importance of being prepared and being ready for any type of disaster, be it a flood, earthquake, hurricane, as well as a terrorist attack. And the U.S. government has statistics that the chances of being hit by a terrorist attack, he said, is as much as being hit on the head by a toaster. I mean, it's almost negligible. But he still believed it was important for any situation. He studied human beings, and this Roscola studied this one, I believe, a Catholic monk who studied birds. And when he held these birds in his hands, I don't know if they were geese or pigeons, but he held them. They would squawk and fight for their life. Then they would go into a catatonic state, just like playing dead, but they were out. And their breathing was shallow, and then it appeared that they were dead. And this would last for minutes. Then they would revive. And he found through his studies that animals, all types and lizards, all types of animals, including human beings, have in their DNA to go into shock, to go into a catatonic state when they are, when there's violence to the physical, emotional, mental body prior to passing or prior to dying. And he realized that most people, because we are so programmed, humanity is so programmed through this DNA to not react during a disaster, that most people during a disaster don't react or don't know how to react. They go into some type of, either they go crazy or they start screaming, they lose it, or they do nothing. They don't know what, they're frozen. So he would have surprise drills, and several teams on each floor would get the people and guide them out of the office. He would have a plan. He says, you have to have a plan. You have to have a design coming from mind. And he talked about the power of the human mind and because the mind is so powerful, there's all possibilities. And it's important that you focus on a certain design, a certain plan. But the plan is no good if you don't practice, if you don't get your subconscious mind into gear where it becomes a habit, because we're so ensconced into habit, having the same situation every single day. So to make a long story short, when the towers were hit, the first tower was hit, then the second tower was hit, this Roscola went into action and his team went into action. And everybody at Stanley Morgan, most everybody knew what to do. And so many lives were saved through their practice. What happened was there was one top executive who refused to leave the building. He even witnessed the first tower being hit. He continued to carry on work as usual. He sat at his desk, still making phone calls, still carrying on business as usual. This Riscola, as well as other New York NY fire department, had to go back in and try and rescue this top executive, as well as there were others who refused to leave the building. And Riscola made several trips. His last trip, he perished, along with the top executive and the others who refused to leave. Why we are sharing this with you is because it's the same with spiritual practice. We think, oh, mañana, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, God knows I love him. I don't have to practice. But we spend most of our day worrying about our bills, our finances, and what's more important, getting the kids to school, getting food on the table. And we put our spiritual practices, which can save our lives, aside, saving our soul. And the thing is, it touches others. So when we are in trouble, we may freeze, we may go yelling, or we may not know how to act. So these great human beings, great beings, some will have to come and try and rescue us. And we may cost the life of others on a spiritual level, as well as on a physical level. Another lesson in spirituality, it's so important that we don't try ourselves to go and try and go and rescue someone. They, just like an alcoholic, an addict, they have to come to a realization themselves. So what we do as teachers, healers, ministers, as initiates, people on the path, we have to strengthen and practice and be the light. So when the time comes, as in the book of Revelations, the time is here. It's always now. Instead of reaching for a drowning person, and we ourselves are poor swimmers, and drown with them, we can throw a lifeline or a life preserver by shining our light. And just like all kids, they learn faster through example, what their parents do, than all the chit-chatting, all the talking that parents do. There's a breathing exercise that he teaches in his little manual that he said all special forces learn, Green Berets, fire department, police. When someone is in a panic, you teach them how to breathe. And so part of the drill was learning how to breathe, how to calm the nervous system. He said, uh, we all know about our autonomic nervous system, like the heart just beats regular, without us making it beat. The circulatory system works without our efforting, but we have to take care of our physical body. But the breath is one that's also done automatically, but we can control. So it's like a bridge, the Rainbow Bridge. And so he teaches the 4-4-4-4 breath. In spirituality, we teach a 5-5-5-10 breath that a lot of you know. And and that's to calm the nervous system. And that 5-5-5-10 breath is you exhale all the breath out of you for holding it out for 5, inhaling, done all through the nose, inhaling for 5, holding for 5, just like creation, exhaling and expanding, exhaling for 10. And those numbers, 20 equals 25 equals number 7. And 7 is like a bridge. It is a bridge. It gives us a chance to go from one point of reference to another point of reference. It's how we create. The 4-4-4-4 breath is the same thing, but in a 4-4 rhythm. 4 out, you hold it out, and then you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold out for 4. Inhale for 4. That's when someone's in a real panic. And those 4s is 16, again number 7. So breathing, breath, is so important in part of survival, in our survival on the physical. He teaches other things too in the book. But we could see how it correlates to our spiritual survival. Water being washed within by the Holy Spirit, and so on and so forth. And the most important is to be here present and not to panic, but to be prepared. He said this is what happens during a disaster. There's disbelief. Just like in a relationship, if someone dies or a relationship, someone leaves, there's disbelief, non-acceptance. That is why belief in prosperity thinking is a key to your prosperity. It's a magnetic. And he said, for this survival training, it's so important you don't you skip over that you skip over disbelief because you're so programmed, you're so well trained. You aren't there like a dummy or an insane person, crazy person. He says there's that disbelief. Then there is then after the disbelief, then there's this deciphering. Your mind goes all over the place, trying to think what to do. when you finally accept. And he said, even that, that's why you need a plan. That's why you need uh, um, an architectural diagram, not only a physical architectural diagram, but an internal architectural diagram of what you are to do. And then the decisiveness, action, taking right action. He says, those are the 3 Ds that people go through during a disaster. And to go directly to action takes practice. And we talk about right action often. We need to go into retreat within ourselves. We need to really experience and get in touch on a daily basis, communing with God, communing with that still wee small voice. So it's a part of us. So we don't have to go into disbelief or this shock. Oh, he calls the 4-4-4 breath combat breathing. They learned that in combat. So you don't need to practice a 4-4-4-10 unless you're in that state where your adrenaline is racing and you don't know what to do. But do practice the 5-5-5-10 breath so that you calm the nervous system before you start your meditation. For every single one of us matters. What decision we make, what action we take will influence the whole human chain. And not only the human chain, it touches animals, it touches the plant kingdom, God's kingdom.